Hey guys, welcome to another review, and today we have an exciting product. We have the KZ DQ6, first KZ for me in a long time, and this is really exciting because it's a 3 driver per side system and 3 dynamic drivers at that for around $30. Definitely in the price range for a lot of people. And looking at the box itself, it has that kind of gray kind of color with that kind of TRN IM1 kind of look. So definitely really exciting to look at. So let's unbox this thing. Of course, big thanks to Boo Easy for sending this over. Links down below for their shop. So actually, it's been a while since I unboxed the KZ, so this will be really exciting. So you're actually getting pretty standard KZ kind of box, but actually the portrait itself, the IM looks kind of cool with that kind of gray kind of color. You have DQ6, unilateral 3 dynamic, challenges the configuration limit. You're getting a 3.5mm jack, 0.75mm 2-pin connector, 20 to 40k hertz in frequency range, and 24 ohm impedance as well. So this 3 dynamic driver per side kind of configuration, which is the first that I'm gonna listen to. So that's quite interesting, especially for a KZ. So opening it up, all right. So that's a quite cool kind of design. Actually recently, especially with the ZAX, actually KZ design is getting better and better, and this is actually a nice looking KZ as well. So the ZAX, I kind of like the minimalist kind of design in here as well. It's kind of cool looking as well. So even the EDX, even if it's cheap, it kind of looks cool. But let's take a look at the lobes later. Let's take a look at what you get in the cables first. But this kind of looks like the white kind of cable. All right, and what you get with the sub $20 counterparts. And here you're getting additional tips as well. And from the looks of it, it's your typical silicone tips as well. All right, there you go. Okay, looking at the lobes itself, so I'm liking the color so far. So this kind of reminds me of the Yin Use of the past that I have unboxed. I'm kind of liking the color overall. So it's kind of like a gray, matte gray kind of color. Definitely something that I like. I don't know, might be one of the candidates for the best looking KZ that I have seen. Maybe right up there with the ZAX, because I do like the ZAX as well. But this also takes the cake. And looking at the case itself, actually it's pretty cool because you have that kind of fins. So finally, we're able to see something like this. And I'm really a big fan of fins in any IM because it makes it more stable on the ear. And definitely a big fan of these. It's actually a different kind of KZ in terms of the overall shape. It's more custom IM kind of shape, which definitely is something that I really welcome. It feels really solid in the hand too. I mean, for the price that you're paying for, definitely this feels solid, and I do like the plastic that they used. Let's say in terms of the overall design, this kind of a notch up compared to the other KZs that I have checked. This feels really good in the hand. I'm not sure if this is metal or plastic, but definitely it feels good. And you're getting also the new KZ connector as well, which will make it more stable on the ear. Kind of reminds me of the BA5 as well, because the BA5 also has this kind of curvy kind of design, which is I definitely like as well. So let's put the cables in. So we now have the cables in, and yeah, definitely typical of any KZ. The KZ cable is okay, definitely better compared to before. But again, in this price range, I do like to see maybe an up in terms of the quality over your something that you're getting under 500 pesos or $10. It's a similar cable. So I would want to see better quality cables. But yeah, I mean, that's usually the case for KZs. They don't really invest that much in cables, but they do invest in giving you the best value in terms of the lobes. So that's their kind of thing. But yeah, this is what it looks like. So yeah, let's now put it on the ear, and I'm gonna give you guys my impressions in how this wears on the ear, and also how this sounds like as well. Alright, so we are now wearing it on our ear, and actually it's really nice on the ear. It's actually really stable on the ear. So in terms of stability, it's definitely one of the more stable ones, definitely in that price range, because it has some fins, and also it does go inside your ear as well. So this does remind me a lot of the BA5s in terms of the insertion and also the stability on the ear. So really stable in these. You can definitely do some extraneous activities with these, and it will stay on your ear. In terms of comfort, actually it's pretty comfortable as well. So even if it has some fin, sometimes for some IMs they overdo the fins, and it makes it suffocating feeling on the ear. So it's not like that here. It's still quite breathable on the ear. So maybe because of that custom IM kind of design, it has a little bit more contours. It's definitely breathable on the ear. You could definitely listen to this for a long listening session. And also that tips as well. It's quite soft on the ear, so it's not that suffocating feeling. So definitely even the tips helps out in making this more stable, more comfortable on the ear to listen to. In terms of isolation, I would say not the best in isolation. I think maybe because of that tips. The tips that they included is not the best that I've listened to. So definitely if you want more isolation in these, you should change up the tips to others. Maybe the AET08s or maybe the spin fits as well will be nice. But definitely yes, not the best fitting. Actually the tips also is not the most stable fitting on the lobes itself. So it's quite loose. So definitely compared to maybe your usual Starline tips, this definitely a bit more loose than usual. So actually for this, if I'm gonna upgrade it, that's the first that I'm gonna upgrade to. I'm gonna upgrade the tips to maybe spin fits or AET08s. I think that will be a worthy upgrade for these. But overall, in terms of the fit on the ear, this is definitely good. Definitely one of the more stable KZs that I have worn on my ear. Right now, let's go to the sound. So actually listening to these, it's quite exciting because it's the first time that I'm gonna hear a full dynamic driver type of KZ. And actually when I was listening to these, it does remind me a lot of a KZ type of sound. But now with some improvements in some areas because it's a dynamic and driver type of sound. So definitely firstly, as you can see from the title, for KZ lovers, KZ fans, you will feel right at home with these. But now you have the benefits of having a full dynamic driver and type of configuration. So firstly, compared to other KZs that I've heard, this definitely has an improvement in tonality. So because of that dynamic driver type of design, definitely this still has that 10K peak. So that KZ peak at the top, definitely a very KZ sound still. Really has that shimmer on top. So for KZ fans, you will feel right at home with this one. And now given its dynamic driver kind of configuration, it has a little bit more liveliness in the sound, a little bit more energy in the sound. And actually in my first listen in these, what really surprised me is the instrument positioning. The 3D staging here is nice. Definitely for a dynamic driver configuration, this might be one of the advantage of having that multiple dynamic drivers compared to just having a 1DD kind of configuration. So looking at the measurements, this is definitely a KZ type of sound through and through. So from the measurements from the bass region, you have that kind of smooth line going towards around 800 hertz region where you have that recession, and that is your valley for your V shape. And from 800 hertz, you have that kind of vocal hump going towards around 2 to 3K. So in the mids region, you have a small hump, but definitely it's still more recessed than your bass region. So it's still quite a U type of shape. And after that, it goes down to around 4K. And after that, it goes up again with that major peak at around 5K. And then goes down again at around 7K. And you have that final, 10K peak, the KZ peak at around 10K again. So you have that double horns at the top here, which is popular nowadays, and still it is bright on top as well. So this kind of reminds me of the Blon 01 and also TC01. The ZSTXs, this kind of tuning, they have their similarities here. So actually firstly, compared to the ZSTX, the 10K peak here is a little bit more toned down compared to the ZSTX. Actually, the ZSTX also has that mid bump. But definitely the 10K peak, the DQ6 is a bit more toned down. So definitely for those who's more treble sensitive, you might like the DQ6 more than your ZSTX. So compared to the Blon 01, the DQ6 has more brightness on top, has more prominent peaks at the top. So as you guys can see in around 5K and 10K region, the DQ6 has more prominent peak on top. Definitely the highs in the Blon 01 is a little bit more toned down compared to your KZ. So actually comparing to the TRN BA5, so the BA5 also has that hump in the mids region. But actually the BA5 doesn't have that prominent 10K. So the BA5 goes down earlier compared to your DQ6. And actually the BA5 is a little bit more balanced as well compared to the DQ6. The DQ6 is a bit more bright on top compared to your BA5. So definitely in terms of signature, it has kind of a mix of different IEMs. So in terms of highs, in terms of the KZ world, this is one of the few that's in dynamic driver type of configuration. So definitely in terms of the tonality, this is one of the better ones that you can get for a KZ. So the tonality here is better. So it's a bit more rounded on top. So definitely, in terms of having more natural type of sound, this is a bit better compared to your usual BA counterparts. So definitely this has that fun, engaging type of KZ sound that every KZ followers like. So it's still here, but a bit more toned down. So definitely still prominent in the mix. However, if I'm gonna nitpick in the grand scheme of things, so while this has some improvements compared to your BA counterparts, the peak on top still makes some cymbals a bit too thin for my liking. So like in Dream Theater, You Not Me, the cymbals still is lacking a bit of body for me. I find other dynamic drivers to have fuller bodied cymbals. So in terms of highs, while it's better, I would say it's still not the strength of the DQ6. So mids are actually very nice in these. I do like the mids, especially the vocal positioning is nice. So definitely that hump in the mids region helped out in making the positioning better. So this kind of reminds me of the BA5 in a way, in terms of the positioning in the vocals. So for both male and female vocals, I do like the positioning here, and the vocals are fairly revealing too. And also it has that air in the sound while not being too shouty to listen to. So actually for these, I like the female vocals more than the male vocals. Actually in terms of the mids, this does remind me of the Blon 01 in a way. So they have their similarities. However, still, if I'm gonna nitpick for some people, especially if you listen to high volumes, you might find that some parts of the mids, like for example, snare hits might be a bit too hot for you. Like for example, in Joe Satriani Jumping In, the snare hit in the mids region might be a bit hot for your liking. So, but if you keep good volume levels, you might not encounter these. Your mileage may vary on these, and especially depending on the tracks that you're listening to. But for me, yes, I like the mids here overall. So for me, I like the mids over the highs in the DQ6. So the bass is definitely substantial. So compared to your Blon 01, this is more boomy compared to your Blon 01. But this is not as boomy as your Blon 03. This has some quickness still to the bass. But definitely this is more of a fun kind of bass. So this is not your monitor type of bass. The bass impact is substantial as well, so definitely prominent in the mix and also big in the mix as well. And maybe on some tracks, actually, it kind of bleeds to the mids a bit. So yeah, definitely substantial in these, but I would say not that much. So this is not your overwhelming, bassy type of IEM. So definitely there's still some clarity in this IEM. It's also front and center in the mix, so kind of reminds me of the ZST bass in a way. So prominent in the mix, but still you have that kind of highs extension at the top. For bass heads, it might work for you, but if you are okay with still having that clarity. So soundstage is pretty big, one of the biggest that I've heard in a KZ. Imaging is also surprisingly good. So actually, yeah, this is one of the key things that surprised me in this IEM. So over the Blons, I find the positioning here is a little bit more pronounced. Like for example, in Earth, Wind, and Fire, Let's Groove, the shaker on the right side is easier to pinpoint than your Blons. So maybe that's the advantage of the 3-driver type of design. Separation is also pretty good in these, even for a dynamic and driver configuration. The separation is good. I would say more so compared to other single DDs that I have tried. So again, might be another advantage of a multi-driver type of design. In terms of detail, while this has some micro detail, this is not the most detailed pair. So yeah, in terms of the micro dynamics, this not the strength of the DQ6. Alright, so compared to the Blon 01, so the Blon 01 has more toned down highs, but that's more energetic mids, a bit less pronounced bass in the 01. The bass is tighter in the 01. The 01 also is a more pronounced U type of shape. The DQ6 has a little bit of that mids elevation, which makes it a little bit more of a W type of shape. The DQ6 in comparison has a little bit more boomy bass at the bottom, more substantial impact on the bass as well, more toned down mids in the DQ6, but just a touch, it's not that far off, but more substantial peak and brightness on top. But really on the ear, and looking at the measurements, they're not that far off. They have a lot of similarities. So if you kind of want more substantial bass and more prominent peak, If you're into a KZ type of sound, you should go with the KZ. If you want a faster sound and less peak as well, go for the Blons. Compared to the Blon 03, the Blon 03 is warmer, a little bit more relaxed as well. And vocals for me are still more natural in the Blons. The DQ6 has a better separation, also brighter on top, more toned down on bass as well. In terms of signatures, these are farther compared to the Blon 01. The Blon 03 is definitely warmer. The DQ6 is a more pronounced hue, bright hue. So it will depend on your preference for these. If you want warmth, go for the Blon 03. If you like more V, more brightness on top, go for the DQ6. Alright, so verdict for the DQ6. So this has been a long review. But yeah, for me, for this KZ, it has a lot of things going for it. Firstly, I do like the design overall. One of my favorite design KZs, I'd say. Looks nice, fits nicely on the ear. And I do like that, fins on the ear and also custom IM kind of design. Definitely a big plus for me. Having that really nice fit on the ear improves my experience in listening. That's definitely a big plus in these. And also it has that kind of KZ type of sounds. If you're a KZ fan, KZ lover, if you're upgrading from something that's under $20, this will be a nice consideration because you'll feel right at home. If you like the KZSTX or the ZSN Pros, you'll feel right at home in these because it still has that brightness on top. It still has that shimmer on top, which makes this more fun to listen to. So it still has that KZ type of fun, but now with that kind of dynamic driver configuration, which has its advantages, of course, in the tonality part. So for me, in terms of tuning, it's definitely your 2021 tuning. So a lot of people will pick this up and just be okay with the sound. Because yes, it's quite nice on the ear. So definitely compared to your even Blon counterparts, this will have some advantages, especially if you're into a KZ type of sound. So they tried to find a middle line. It's not the same as your Blons. It still has that KZ touch. So I'd say in terms of the price range, these are really good value for the money. It has its own thing going for it, especially this is the first time that I listened to a 3-driver per side kind of configuration. It has a unique thing going for it, and that's what I like about audio gear in general. You have a unique selling point, and this has its own unique thing because for a dynamic driver, it has a little bit better separation compared to your other single DDs. It's kind of in the middle of a multi-BA and also 1DD type of configuration. It definitely has a unique selling point, especially in that price range. And I do appreciate that, especially for 2021, where there's a lot of IEMs that's coming out. So this has its own thing going for it. So if you're a KZ fan and you like to try out dynamic drivers, this is a good pick. If you're also somebody who's considering maybe the Blon 01 and you like a little bit more brightness at the top, if you like clarity, you might also consider this. Also, if you find the bass in the T01 is too much for you, you might also consider this as well. It may be even for some people who doesn't like to try out KZs before, because you don't like maybe a BA type of configuration. This might be a good entry to the KZ type of sound. For me, frankly, I kind of like this. So definitely for a KZ type of sound, I would say this is one of my favorites. And for the price that you're paying for, it's really nice value as well. So that's my review of the DQ6. Really interesting, IM to look at. So yeah, actually it's been a while since I, took a look at a KZ, and this is a nice comeback because it's a really interesting configuration. Because yeah, I did review a lot of KZs, and it's refreshing to see, different kind of configuration. 3 dynamic drivers, not your usual, hybrid 10 driver system. And what do you think of the DQ6? Have you heard it? Have you bought it? Are you gonna get one as well from the review? Let me know down in the comments below. And for KZ fans alike, what do you think of the DQ6? Are you okay with the dynamic driver type of configuration? Or do you still, want your BA configuration? Let me know also down in the comments below. And I'm gonna see you guys in the next zpolt review. Goodbye.